And good morning, everybody. We are in the Hawkeye trade room. This is going to last until about 9:30, about 9:30, going on to 10 o'clock today. And Eva, I'm going to make you a co-host, prompt for promote to panelist, allow you to talk, and let me get through the disclaimers here real quick, and then we'll be on our way. Trading the Forex exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you as well as for you. Before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest capital that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. This is a live trading room and is for educational purposes only. No financial advice or recommendations will be provided. Any trades taken during this live session is not a recommendation or suggestion that you should do the same. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and do not trade money that you cannot afford to lose. Before trading live, always operate with a written trade plan that identifies rules for entries, exits, targets, and risk management. And having said that, let me stop sharing this screen and switch over to another screen that we have here, if I can find it.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning there, Eva. Thanks for coming in for this morning.
Not a problem.
And we have Eva here to help us today. And Brian's in the room for a little bit as he can, but we will see what his schedule works out for. But right now, Eva and I are going to be, if you have any questions or comments, we'd like if you put them in the question and answer box. We're more likely to see them there. If you put them in the chat box, we may not see them in a very timely fashion. But anyway, good morning. At 6 o'clock this morning, the last alert we've had was a descending wedge at 6 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to put this one up and I'm going to show you how I drew this one. This one's a little bit, it was kind of a tough one to draw in some ways, and but still holding the line, is that it was a descending wedge at 6 o'clock, and that was right here at 6 o'clock on this. I'm going to take this one off here because this was just a marker for me to know when to start this thing. So I started it was descending, and you can see where it was we had a nice move down. It came back, pulled back. This was a trend line, and this was the top of my wedge. It's a little bit steeper than I usually like to have, but I'll explain to you why I did that. So I usually look for a pivot high and a pivot low somewhere before the wedge alert. And then if it's a descending wedge, I start with the top. I use this triangle tool over here that we have on TradingView. I start with the top. I come down to where the most significant pivot low which was actually right here. But I'm looking to see if I can find an anchor and a couple of points in between the AC line and the BD line. I'm trying to find a couple of hits along the way to designate it as a valid trend line. So before the wedge, I had a point here, which is a pivot low. This was just before yesterday's close, and we have an anchor here. So, the other thing is that you can see that this was like a real sharp head. It's almost like a head and shoulders pattern, and so it was significant. I had a significant trend line from this point with a hit here, and you can see where that real aligns with where my C is, with a little head popping out of the top of this. And this looks to me like this could be a point of a reversal pattern. And here's the left shoulder, here's the right shoulder of this head and shoulders pattern. And now we're looking for this thing to go to the downside. As after I draw that part of the wedge, I'll go, so we have we had the wedge, which is the orange or the yellow area. And then I put a 2.2 pip mark on either side of it, a range on either side of the 2 pips. And so so this is my entry zone. Now, I didn't take this trade mainly because I wasn't up yet. That's the main reason. But the other reason is that when it came back up into the wedge, I noticed that we have a little bit of a trend line going here. I did try to make this as tight as I can with my 1 minute chart, and I put the D as close to the point of where that pivot area was. Same way with my C area, and back with my D, I kind of my A area. I made sure I have this on the top, so I'm going to slide this over just a little bit. And that gives me the most precision that I can come up with for where this trade, where these trend lines are. Because that's all wedges are, is nothing other than a series of trend lines. And I'll just come over here and see where my A, I can move my A over here, and that's all set. And then we can come on over and see where we are with the trade. So you can see where it came back. It sort of gave a little bit of a head fake up here also, but you can see where it had the little top. This was actually a wedge inside of a wedge. You can almost draw this thing from here, this is on the lower time frame, to this hit up here, and then we had a little trend line coming right along the top here. And that's, so you actually had, and we're just now getting a little bit of a breakout of this wedge, but I'm going to flatten this one out to the top, try and catch these trend lines along the way here. And you can see it right now, it gave us another little head fake to the top. And right now we're looking to see if this thing can come down, but we're still not going to take the trade until we can get a break of this bottom trend. So we're just looking pretty much at the price action analysis of where the prices are going and what kind of a pattern it's making in the process. I'm going to take this one off just to show you a little bit what I was looking at for why I didn't take this trade and why I didn't take that trade. When these wedge alerts happen, things happen kind of quickly, so sometimes I'm trying to go through the explanation so we don't miss out on some of these opportunities. But you can see there's a little bit of a trend line going up here. When I draw a trend line, I always like to see and have an anchor and a couple points where this trend becomes gets challenged. Like here it was challenged, here was challenged, here was challenged. So there's a point, a point, a point, and that sort of validates this as a secondary trend line. This validates as a hit anchor, a hit. Here's a near hit right here, and we can almost validate that as the top of this, where this thing could possibly, where it consolidates. One thing about the prices move in three different ways. They move up, they move down, and they move sideways. But what happens is on a higher time frame, if you look on a higher time frame, it's moving sideways. But inside that time frame, so a lot of times I'll draw a box, and we have a box from a pivot high to a pivot low, and then draw it. And this is basically the box that it's playing in right now. And you can see the range on this thing is roughly 21 pips, 19 pips, which is enough. We're just only trying to get 7 pips out of this thing. So if you can, but you can see where it's inside the box, the price is going sideways, but you can see where it has strong moves up, strong moves down. Remember, this is on a 1 minute chart. So you're going to see all those little variations. But if you look on a 15-minute chart, you're going to see that it's just really going sideways. You don't see all those little pullbacks and spikes up. So right now we're doing nothing until we want to see a breakout of the bottom here. You can see it's coming to the end of where this peak is, where the peak of the wedge is. And once that happens, you can start seeing where it's going to start making this move in one direction or another. If it breaks out of the top of this box, we have this area that we drew. This would be the first area that I would expect to see a bounce. But if it gets through that area, then we have another area. Pretty much the target would be up around where the A is, if this breaks along this green line. So right now it's just consolidating. Remember, this was a very, very steep angle. And usually I like to have them a little bit flatter than that. But that's just the way this one's playing out. The euro is has been very volatile here lately. So we have to take that into consideration as we draw these things to give it the wiggle room and the angles, so that if it breaks out of the angles, that have another angle that you're looking for a target. And so right now we're just sort of waiting for this thing to break out of the bottom of this area where I have this red entry zone line coming in. There's still a little bit of it's still trying to decide which way it wants to go. There does seem to be a fair amount of pressure to the downside. And all these other small moves have just been pullbacks. I don't want to take this thing long just yet. I'd like to see a breakout above this moving average up here. This is a 62 moving average on a 5-minute chart. I would want to see a breakout above that first before I would take it long. But right now, we have 3 moving averages. We have a exponential. They're all exponential moving averages, and we have a 62. The yellow is a 13. The green is a 5. And we want to see all 3 of those being in the right direction, with the slowest being on top, the middle, and then the green on the bottom. So we have a 5, 13, 62. And we want to see that spread all the way down for the move. And if we're looking to go long, they would be in the opposite direction, where the green would be on top, the yellow would always be in the middle, and then the purple one would be at the bottom. But right now we're looking to go short, and right now everything is in the right direction. And we have 2 RSIs down here, and they're showing weakness. They're coming out of the 60-40 zone, and they're pointing down, and see how far it goes. See if we can get some pips out of this thing. If we get a candle close on, I'm going to go back to the 1-minute chart. If we can get a candle to close on the 1 minute inside of our zone, we can take the straight short. But I want to see it close below this yellow triangle. And we're at the very end of this triangle. And we can take this thing short right in here. Entry to sell. And if we have a sell in there, and we're going to try and put our stop. We have a 7-pip range. And right now I want to see it. I'm still wanting to, I don't want to see it break the top of this purple trend line that we have here. It broke, it came up, tested it. Now it's coming up to retest it again. Right now, as long as it can stay below these moving averages, we're still good for this. And it's still staying within our zone that we had. It did have a little bit of a push up here. We'll see what it does. Right now, it's still inside this box, so to speak. Any questions so far?
The room is silent.
The room is quiet today. How many people are new to the room? If you're new to the room, raise your hand.
Christine has a question. She's asking, what are your RCSs?
The RCS that's a tool that we're soon to be making available to everybody. The RCS is a tool that we use to show direction of where the trade is. We have it on 3 different time frames. And what it does is basically it's showing you the strength of uh, 8 different currencies, and when I'm on the chart, the Euro US is only showing the 2. But what they really are is it's a combination of all of these 8 pairs. And I have this, it's the same tool right here. I have on 4 different time frames. And this is on a 4-hour time frame and showing that we're on the Euro US, it's showing that the Euro on a 4-hour is stronger than the dollar. But on the lower time frames, which is like this is a 30-minute, is showing that the dollar is stronger than the Euro. On the lower time frame, 5-minute, or this is the 15, the dollar is stronger than the euro. It's like the third strongest one on a 15-minute chart. So that means the dollar is getting a little bit of strength. And so it basically gives us an idea of where the strength is and which direction to trade, reference to its opposite pair. It helps us to determine the direction. Also helps us determine when to enter the trade or when not to enter a trade just by the spread. I like to see a 3-point spread where the currency in the direction. I like to see at least a 3-point spread before I take the trade. And right here we have the U.S. is 5, the euro is a 2. That gives us a 3-point spread on the 15-minute chart. The dollar is the second currency of the pair euro-US, and therefore if the dollar is strong, that means we're looking for it to go short. It's been a real handy tool for us. So a combination of that, and then we have, in here we have whole moving averages, which has a 15, a 5, and a 1-minute whole moving average, all so you can look and see all 3 time frames in one chart, along with our RSI, which is a 3-period and a 8-period relative strength indicator, which is the normal indicator. We just have them bundled up together on one as one indicator. And again, when you get the RSIs to break down below this 60-40 zone, that's usually a good sign that it's going short. And if it breaks to the top side, that means it's got a little bit more upward pressure. But the prevailing direction I'm still looking on as being the 15, and then the 5-minute is sort of like the intermediary. But you don't want to trade against the 15-minute any more than you have to. Sometimes you'll find those earlier moves, the earlier moves will show up on the 1-minute. As you see that this thing will flip back and forth between the euro and the US being stronger. But that's only showing a pullback, especially if these are still staying solid with being a 3-point spread. So even though we have a little pullback here, I'm not too worried about it at this point in time, just because we still have the spreads on the lower time frame. This is still showing a short. We have 2 red bars on the 5-minute. That's showing a short, and this still has the 2 of the 3 are red. Now, if all 3 of these start turning green on all 3 of these time frames, then we may have to start thinking about maybe exiting our trade. I'm going to change the setting on this one a little bit, change the background so you can see a little bit better. And so we have to wait. You see it's forming a little bit of what I call a little flag pattern. You have a strong move down, came back, retested about halfway up the flag. And if this area can break, then it's could be going to the downside. Sometimes when we get as close to the peak of this wedge, a lot of times you may start thinking about seeing if you can find another trend line and use that for your entry, especially if it's still going if the trend is still showing that it's if the prices are break below this little trend line right here, then a lot of times you may try and take a little bit earlier entry, but that's more of an advanced type of a trading strategy. And you'll see that there's a lot of different pictures that you'll be looking at as your eyes become tuned and adjusted to the pictures that you're seeing. You want the picture to look right. And as you learn, and you'll be able to start seeing some certain patterns that develop that will draw your attention to the trade. And right now, let's clean up this 15-minute chart a little bit so you can not so cluttered and looking for some price action that we may be looking for. But right now, all of our moving averages on our 15-minute chart are all in the correct direction. We have the 15, the 13, or excuse me, the 62, the 13, and then the 5 is this green one. And you can see that the price is still staying below this yellow line. This is as high as it got when the push. So right now, if it breaks the top of this area right here, I would start thinking about exiting my trade. You can see it's just it hasn't been able to break out of this area right in here.
Al, I have a question.
Yes.
Your moving averages, the 62, the 13, and the 5, what does it take to make them switch position? Is it the time that it's in a certain trend? Do you know the answer to that?
When they switch, it's basically just when it's strictly based on the price action of the candles. It basically goes back like this value right here is what the moving average is. It goes back 62 bars. In other words, like, so from here it goes back to where 62 bars. It takes the average. If I were to go take this and come back over 62 bars, which would be right about here, it takes from this candle right here to where I started. It takes the closing price of all those candles and averages them out and gives you this value. Same way with the 13, it is the same thing. It starts here, it goes back 13 bars, takes the average of the close and plots that. So when those averages cross, which meet and cross, this is a crossover of the 62. And this is a very strong area right here to be considered because this is where the price has actually really started to switch. You can see where the 5 crossed the 13 up this area. But when you get the 13 to cross the 62, that's a strong move. And now you can start looking at this channel. And you see that this channel here, the channel is fairly narrow. But as it progresses along the trade, the channel will start to narrow a little bit. So we have this little channel right here. So I can pull this up. Here's where the channel is, and if you take this box, so to speak, and you bring it down, you can see that now it's starting to widen out. When these start to narrow again, you're starting to get near the end of the move.
Okay, great. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so as long as this thing's, and that's why I like to see where this thing's a little bit wide, because if this price breaks, this has to go this whole distance to come up here, and you'll see where after you had the cross, it came back way down here, it came back, and you see where it wicked up above, but it couldn't close above it. And then it broke down below, and it hasn't crossed this yellow line since. But you're looking to see how wide this thing gets, because as the price gets closer to this, you'll start seeing this start to hook. And then this channel here will get a little bit narrower. And it's the same thing goes like with the 5 minute. You can see like here is real, it came up, it tried to cross, but it couldn't break it, and then it came back down again. So it's respecting this area up in here. Now, if you get this where this green line crosses the 13, as you may see on the 1 minute here, where you see like right on the 1 minute, you see where it crossed. See how it was real tight. It came in. We had the 13 crossed the 62. It got wider, and then it became narrower, and now it crossed over. Now it's heading up to the to change directions here. And we probably got stopped out of that.
Oh, that's a big candle.
Yeah, that's a strong move. It's coming right up to, this is a 30-minute 62 period. And we'll see what this thing does. It came right up to that line and it stopped. And now we're going to see if that was just a head fake or if this is a real small candle. This would have exited. We would have been out of the trade by this one right here. So this one would have been stopped out. And that happens. But this is a nice rally. It's basing right here. And this is right at almost 8:30. Now seeing if it's going to come back down and retest this trend line here. You can see where it came in, broke it, came back, tested it, came down here, broke this one, came back, broke it again. Now we'll see if it's going to come back down and test it. So this may be the new trend line to the upside. But right now it just broke through. Did have a close above this candle right here, closed above the box, so to speak. And now it's retesting it again. And the euro will do this. The euro gives a lot of volatile moves, and it gets everybody in the wrong direction. And then it gets you sucked into the trade, and then it takes your stops. Right now, it's starting to show some strength to the upside. Right now, let's see the euro and the U.S. have just flipped over here. Before the U.S. was a 5 and the euro was a 2. Now the euro is a 4 and the U.S. is a 2. So that's showing that the euro is now taking control of it's starting to take control of the move. If I look at my higher time frames, the euro, now the dollar is the weakest on the 4-hour chart, which means that, and the higher time frames have more significance, but that just, euro just gains some position on that. If we get a bounce off of here, but right now we're still inside. Actually, we broke the wedge. But I'm still respecting this green line right here. If we look at our 15-minute chart on this, you can see let's see how far to go up in here. See where the price came up. Right now we're looking at this real strong on the 15-minute chart. We're looking at this candle right here. And if we can get a close, right now this 15-minute candle is going to close in another minute. But I'm looking to see where did it close? How high? Here's the highest high that closed. Actually, this one was a little bit higher. This one has a higher close. Now the question is, will this candle close higher than this blue one right here? And we'll have to wait another 34 seconds to find that out. Because right now all it did was it took out all these wicks, said okay, but it still has, once it breaks this candle, once you get a close above here, the next stop on the train is going to be up in this area. But I want to see it close above this area first. This is where sometimes it's nice to be on the higher time frames because you can see some of these, it doesn't whipsaw you quite so badly. And see, not only did this thing not, it came up, you had, this is probably a little bit of a divergence here. You have a higher high, but a lower close. You can see that the close right now is, it just wicked you up. And now if this thing starts going stronger, then you may be thinking about, but I'd like to see a close on that first before I would. I was in a trade and I'm going to exit that trade. I don't like the way this thing's going. I think right now, if we get a close, let's see where a 5-minute chart is. We get, and see where it came right up to that 62. It could come up and retest this one over here. It is showing some strength right now. We have 3 green bars, green. This one's still red. Yes.
Christine has a question with regards to the whipsawing effect. Did you mean all pairs or the euro?
All pairs will whipsaw you. The euro sometimes gets a little bit more aggressive in that department. Likes to get people, likes to get you in and then backs off, takes your stops, and then gets you going further again. But so you can see how it's respecting this 62 right here on this. This is a 30-minute exponential 62 moving average. I've got that on yellow or on all three time frames. Right now I'm looking to see if this thing's going to take off and retest this yellow line up here. I would expect to see somewhat of a bounce right up in this area right here where the 15-minute 62 is coming right up to the right about here. We have a little strong wick right up in this area. Let me take off some of these lines here since they're all just going to be more confusing at this point. I'll mark down where the wedge originally was, which was here at 6 o'clock. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get another alert here before too long.
It's been pretty quiet all week in the mornings anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a weird week.
I was reading some items regarding the market. Part of this quietness, from what they say, is the uncertainty of how schools will react. If schools start going back into virtual learning and parents are having to come back home, the economy will turn. So everybody's kind of waiting for that to kind of settle down, from what I understand.
I wouldn't doubt that one bit.
Well, from the inside, being teacher, it's exactly what it is. Parents are wanting their kids to go back for their own economics, but but there's a lot of politics going on with, lawsuits if a child gets sick, and where's the lawsuits and stuff like that. So I get it. It's I see both sides, but it's definitely a matter of choice more than the pandemic itself.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, a lot of parents can't get back to work as long as because they still have to find some place to put their kids.
We had one mention that she would prefer having her child at virtual learning. However, she can't afford her medicine without a job. The child's medicine, because she's a child at risk due to lung issues, and so without a job, she can't maintain. So she's kind of caught in the middle. Those are the ones I'd like to see get help. But I don't know how, there's no right or wrong answer, to be honest. It's all opinion at this point, choice. So it's not a battleground I want to fight. So
no, that's for sure. It is, and it is going to be a battleground. You have the teachers unions that want certain conditions before they go back to school, and that's a whole nother issue.
I just sit back, and it's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm not in control of it, nor can I change anybody's opinion about it. So there's no reason to fight over it. And that's not even a soapbox issue this morning. That's good. I got in this trade on the short side early. I really wanted to get in it long, but I don't have the capabilities here at school to do that yet. It's always good to trade before the kids show up, but there's no kids today, so.
So when are the kids supposed to show up?
The schedule is next Monday virtually. They won't be in class, they'll be online, so I'll be busy. Our district in particular expects us to be logged on a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a day with the kids, which is really, really weird. But then they're supposed to be back in class on September 8th after the Labor Day holiday. And so that's those who have chosen to be in class. So, and I have in class currently 21 in my class, which will be the largest class I've had since I've been teaching. And they're talking about having waivers to allow, because the maximum is 22, but they can do waivers up to 26 for elementary. And I've been told that there's a good chance I'll have 24 to 25. The problem with that is common sense is gone in a lot of ways, because the reason, if you're going to do face-to-face, the mandate or whatever they're trying to, the guidelines is stating 6 feet apart, social distancing. Mathematically, I've measured out my room, and there's no way to put that many desks in my room. Matter of fact, the maximum to do that kind of spreading is 15. So we're doubling that. There's no way. And so where in one case we're having to do social distancing in the hallway, they're with each other within 2 to 3 feet every day. And so it doesn't really, if they're going to be exposed, they're going to be exposed whether it's in the hallway or not. So it's really, there's a lot of non-common sense stuff, but they're having to cover their backside is what the district's having to cover their backside because of the lawsuits that are potential from the teachers union, from parents. And so some of the rules and guidelines are really ridiculous based because of they're trying to protect themselves from being in a lawsuit. My thoughts are just have parents sign waivers, and there are no lawsuits. If you sign a waiver, then you're no longer able to do a lawsuit based on your child's sickness.
That would make too much sense.
Yeah, it would make too much sense, and it's too simple, So, but I get it. I hear our governor speaking really strong. He's been real good. I've heard our superintendent speaking really well. And even our convocation yesterday was virtual, but they're very guarded on their words because words can be used against you. And so very guarded, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. We've created that. The citizens have created that environment, not any political people, but we've chosen to go that route. So, and now, I heard somebody get a ding.
That wasn't me.
Either they got in or they got out.
Well, actually right now, we had the wedge alert way back here at 6 o'clock, and it came down, and the original wedge was, I didn't really like it as steep as it was. I mean, normally I would probably have drawn it more like this on the original wedge. Here was the alert, try and tuck the C, and it was a descending. And tuck the C in as close, bring it down the bottom, and then bring the D down to sort of flatten out. You did have this little break, but I would have kind of had it somewhere in that direction. Now the fact that we have this thing starting to, I would bring it on up to this area, looking for the break of this area right here. And you can actually probably bring it, now that you have it broken, it's sort of back in the wedge again. Basically, it's right back in the wedge. If you have the start from the A from this level here, you see this is where that 1362 cross. This is on a 5-minute chart, but it gives you a little bit of a reference. And then you have a hit here. Now we're looking to see if it can come up, and I just sort of align this D right with that top line. But basically what I'm doing is I'm lining the D with the A, C, and then the B, keeping this line in check. We've already had the breach and came back into the wedge. So I can put another trend line under here like this as a secondary trend. And we'll just see, right now it came back here, but it came right back into the wedge. So right now it would have to break this trend line if it's going to go to the downside. If we look at our higher time frames, I'm looking, right now it's looking with a little bit more strength to the euro. Not a whole lot, but I am seeing some indications that it may be, that this may get broken and head on up to the next level, which would be pretty much up into this area. We have this one, this right here. If I'm looking at my 15-minute chart, let me blow this up a little bit. Right now, this is I said when we came back into the wedge, if it breaks this, we have this is all wicks right here. I'm going to draw a box around the wicks. So this would be a zone where you find the sellers coming in. And if there's any sellers left, it will eat that box up. Because we have a wick here, we have a wick here. It's all wicks from here to the C. It's all wicks. Once we get past the C, this is the next place where it would hit a wall, and then this would be the next area where it would be coming into to a target area, which should be up right in that area. See where our fibs are on this, see if there's any fib lines to be noted. This is a nice little push right up in there. Remember, these are all, this is where it had a nice move down, came up, and this is where the sellers came in the last time. And so if you did take this thing long, you gotta be getting out of that. We'll wait and see what happens. Also, you have the 62 on this 15-minute, came up, it broke it, couldn't hold it. And if we're looking at this as from the original wedge, go back to the 1-minute chart. And oftentimes you see if it gets a head fake down below, and it can go and breaks the top of the wedge. A lot of times this is where you're going to get the big move coming after the market opens, which could be another 45 minutes. This could just be the pre-market move. We had a nice wick up. It didn't close above the wedge. And also remember you have this supply zone right up in here that's going to have to get through all those wicks that we pointed out earlier in order to, this is on a 1-minute chart, so these wicks aren't quite as prevalent, but You could maybe move it up to maybe this area right here. You see how it just tagged it, came back into the wedge. All of our moving averages on the 1 minute chart are all in alignment, and it also broke this 30-minute exponential 62. I could see where it could come back and retest that. We have a green line, green fib line right there. On the 1 minute chart, this thing likes to go from blue line to blue line. That's our 21 pip range. And so right now it came up, it came right down to the blue line, came up, tested it, crossed it, came back, checked it, went back up to the red line, checked, passed it, checked it, now it's coming back to the green line. There's actually a pretty decent wedge, except for the fact this keeps getting blown away on both sides of it, which makes me think. Yeah. And this is the Euro US. It tends to do this a lot, where it just kind of breaks out and then comes back the other way, especially on a day. Let's see what kind of announcements we have. We have some announcements at, this is August 6th. Really no announcements. We had some announcement at 5 o'clock this morning on the British. Next one's till 9:30 in the evening. Yes, Eva.
Christine just pointed out that we just had an alert on USD Swiss.
Okay, let's take a look at that. We sure did. Thank you for calling that one out.
Thanks, Christine.
845 USD Swiss. Well, let's get over here and let's find the USD Swiss on this. Let's go with this chart and put the Swiss on, and it was a ascending Swiss. And so we're going on the 15-minute chart, bring that open. And this was at 8:45. We'll keep an eye on that Euro US while we're doing this. It broke out, but right now it's still back in the wedge. 8:45, ascending. So it's ascending. I'm going to start low. I'm going to look for the significant pivot low, significant pivot high for the day. This was yesterday's day break, so this is all the new day. So I'm going to start with my triangle tool. I'm going to start with the A down here. I'm looking to see if I can find 3 candles that might be in alignment, and I see 3 here. Take it on up to the top, bring it down to across, tuck it in as tight as I can, and then flatten this one out to, you can do a couple things. You can take it down to see if it gets a breakout of this area, or I could take this one down to here and then flatten this out straight across and wait for it to break this zone right here. This B is significant. If it breaks this would be the next target, and then this would be the next area of a target. We looked at this one last night, and it tried going short, and it went long, and then it went short. And this was the area from like late 10 o'clock last night. And after we got done with our session last night, it broke down the bottom and then it took off. So this is a significant area right up in here. So I would be putting a target zone on this one up in this area. Now the question is, if this breaks, how much room do we have till we get to the next zone? And here is a 15-minute red zone. So this is a very significant area right in here. And that's right about in the middle of this box. And you would have at 91 you'd have about 12 pips. You can get your 7 pips. If this breaks here, you can get your 7 pips to get up before you get into that zone. So it'll be a valid trade. And we're going to tweak the wedge on the 1 minute chart, get as tight as we can. This is significant. This is a significant trend line right here. I'll put a secondary trend in. And so oftentimes you'll see wedges inside wedges. This was a violation, but probably only went 82 to, there's only like 3 pips, so that would be okay for a breach of it. We have a hit here, hit here. So that makes this area of this, if you do get in long, I would be getting out probably before it gets it through this. And right now we're just waiting to see if it can break through. This is where the alert was. And this is right at the 30 minutes 62. If it can break that, it's going to be heading on up. And this is on my 1 minute chart to see where we have any fib lines. Here's a green one, here's a red one. This will be the first target right up in here. And this is showing that the US dollar would be strong, which would also give, if this is strong, that would give indication that the our Euro US trade may go short. If the dollar gets strong enough to break out the top of this, it may get strong enough to break out the bottom with the euro. So now we wait. And we're on the 1 minute chart. We're looking for a close above the trend line. You have this little doji right in there. Whenever I see a doji, I usually like that because when you get a doji where it has like a high, a low, and then no body at all, that just shows you that that's where the buyers and sellers were in total equilibrium. That was way back at 7:15 this morning. So if we can get a close above that, that might give us a little indication that the sellers or the buyers are taking over. Just so us to get through this 30-minute. Let's see how our RCS tool looks on this. Dollar is strong by 3. Right now, the Swiss is the weakest of all the currency pairs on all 3 of these time frames. 91.93, so right about in here would be our zone. This would be an entry to buy, and there it goes. Stalled a little bit. This would be a target up in this area. May get a little bit of a bounce off of this. We'll see how this candle closes. Right now, the top of the wedge is at 90.91, so 93. Right about there. Make this the entry to buy. And we'll see if it closes, comes back into the wedge, and then here's our big blue candle, there's a red candle, this candle, red candle turns blue, you can get in this trade. Or if it comes back and touches the wedge, then it may do that as well. I like to see a strong blue candle followed by a red candle and then a blue candle to follow. If it comes back, touches the wedge, all of our moving averages are correct. If it touches the wedge, and see if it can close outside the wedge. If that red candle closes outside the wedge, you can take the trade. And I'm in. We'll see what happens. You have green bars here, green bars here, green bar here. Dollar is still strong by 3, still strong by 3. And our moving averages are coming out of the 40-60 zone, or RSIs are coming out of the 40-60 zone. In our Euro-US, the Euro-US is back inside the wedge. So that's showing some strength to the dollar side on the Euro, showing strength to the dollar side on the Swiss. They're moving in opposite directions, which is what you want. That gives some consistency that the dollar is starting to regain some of its strength.
So Al, is that indicative of possibly long-term strength or just?
Well, it's showing that it's stronger to the dollar is stronger to the Swiss, which is oftentimes the flight to safety. So if it's starting to get stronger, that means it's starting to regain some of its strength from the in the bigger scope, I guess you could say.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And let's see with our moving averages on our 15-minute chart. Let's see where they are. We know where the target is up here. We're going to put that on market target up on this fib line right here. This would be a nice target to the upside. Make this target 1. And let's see, our moving averages are all consolidated here. They're right on top of each other, but now they are in the right order on the 15-minute. We have a green, yellow, orange. We have green, yellow, purple. And we have green, yellow, white. So that's all coming in the right direction there. Nice little push, see if we can get our target. Let's see where our 7 pips are. That's right up in there. Came right up into the that red box, which is where all of our wicks were. If it struggles to get the 7 pips, then just go ahead and take your 5 and be done with it. This is a pretty strong move here. And I'm out of the trade. I'm not gonna fight for 0.2 of a pip for give up 7.
Al?
Yes.
Rajiv just said a USD CAD alert came in. I don't have it on my phone yet. It hasn't come through for me.
Let me see. USD CAD. Oh, one of our favorite pairs. Yes, it did. US 9 o'clock. Right, it's right at 9 o'clock here. I would say this trade is over for right now. If you got your 7 pips, that was good. And USD CAD is coming up with an ascending wedge on the USD CAD. So let me put that on. Let's take a look at our Euro trade. Yeah, thank you for pointing this out. It's hard for me to keep track of chat boxes and questions and the alerts all at the same time. For some reason, my alerts aren't showing up on my screen like it should, and I'm going to figure out why that is. Let's see. So USD CAD. So we're going to go and we'll pull that one up. Trading view. Get my template. And USD CAD. And get a clean chart. Clean 15-minute chart. Let's bring the charts up. Here they are. First thing I can see is that it's an ascending, which means it looks like it's going from low to high. And all of our moving averages are, it just got to bounce off of the 62 on here. And we got this sort of consolidating. So right here is where we're going to start drawing this thing. So it's at 9 o'clock. Here's 9. Here's the 9 o'clock bar, which is the active bar right now. We don't count that when we draw the wedge because that one hasn't been formed yet before the alert. But it will be, as we are drawing this thing, we'll pay attention to it anyway. So I'm looking at here's the daily day break. So here's the day high, here's the day low. It's ascending, so I'm going to start right down at the low part. I'm going to go up to the high. I'm going to tuck this in as close to the C as close to where the alert was, and I'm going to flatten the top. And I'm going to look and see if there's a way to get a couple hits that are in alignment. If I bring this A up to here, I can maybe pick this one up. That would be tight. Yeah, we can do that. We can take it. I can use this as an anchor, a near hit. That's within the pip. As long as it's within the pip or two, I'm okay. Plus, it was bounced off the 62, so I'm okay with that one. This one bounced off the 62, so we had the 62, and we had a bounce off of it, couldn't close below it. Bounced off of it, couldn't close below it. So I'm going to tuck this in over as close as I can. We have a flat line, and we're just going to keep the D aligned at the peak with the flat line on the top with the B, and then along this trend line with the A, C, and then D. So here's our wedge. We're going to come over here to the 1 minute chart and fine tune it. And see where everything falls into play. I'll move my B over here to where it's right on the 1 minute low. Move my C. Have my A right here. Now let's see if we can maybe tweak that a little bit here. If I move the A to here, I have a hit, hit. Here's an anchor, near hit, near hit. So this is, but we'll still pay attention to this line right here. So I'm going to mark this as a potential target zone. That way, if it breaks out the bottom, we're going to be looking at the A for one, because we know that it bounced off the 68 or 62 on the 15-minute chart around this area. So this is significant. So we're going to mark that one. And if it breaks the C, we'll see if we could get a head fake in this area. Let me move find my D so I can line this up here. It's going to be all the way over. I don't know if I can get that far. I'll have to wait. This would be basically be 5 o'clock this evening. Normally we could be on break right now, but since we have, we could take a quick break here and see if, or we can just stay the mark. We'll go until about 10 minutes to 10 this morning. So we have about another, if anybody wants to take a little break, they can feel free to do so. I keep on top of watching this. Whenever we get the alerts, I hate to just go on break when oftentimes you see you get a cup of coffee and you lose $100 because you took a break. How's our euro doing? Euro's still hanging in there. How about our Swiss? Came right up into that area, came back, and right now it's retesting the bottom of the wedge again. I hesitate to go and take a second position when it pulls. After I hit my 7-pip target, I hesitate to take a second position because a lot of times what will happen, it comes in the wedge, breaks out the bottom, and then makes a huge run. But you just never know. That's why I often say just get your 7 pips or your 5 pips profit, put your at a 2% risk level. That's 2% a day. It's money in the bank. Do that 5 times a week. You just pay 10% on your account. So right now our moving averages on our 1 minute are all in the direction to go short, but still kind of, you don't bank on that, but if you can start seeing where it came up and tested that, that could be an indication where it may be worth paying attention to that level. We're not in any trade on this one yet. Looking at the moving averages on the 5 and the 15. This is starting, we'll probably start getting a little bit more advanced stuff here now that we're into this. And right now on the RCS, the CAD is showing only a spread of 2. There's 1 to those. So right now the Canadian dollar is the second currency of the pair. So if it is on top of this, that means that we're looking to go short the strength of the Canadian dollar. This is the whole's red. This is red. Let's see where these are. We have 3 red holes on that. Let me get to my 5-minute chart here. Once we get a higher high and a higher low, I'm going to bring this D over and create a trend line. This is one thing I like about this tool is I can give some options about maybe creating a trend line with aligning one, but if you start seeing a trend develop inside the wedge, then you can bring this up and find that peak. And if it breaks out of the top, right now, if it were to break out of the top, this would be the first target we'd be looking at. This is on the 5-minute chart. So that would be, and then you have to see, would it be worth taking the trade if this is, if that's at 32.95, and let's say your D is at, say 85, if it breaks out the top at, say right there at the 88 to 95, that'll give you your 7 pips if it breaks. And I'm just going to slide this over so I can catch this trend line and try and, what I'm doing is I'm trying to align this B with this trend line right here, this hit. See if I can just do that. I can do that way. There we go. Now we have your downward trend. If it breaks this, it could be going up to that area right there. I kind of like this because this is outside where the wedge alert was. It has a target. So if it breaks this, it's breaking these if it breaks the moving averages in this area, we could possibly get a nice little target on that. But it would need to break this on the 15-minute. Right now it's inside everything on the 15-minute. This would be a very aggressive move at this point. I would like to see all the moving averages on the 1 minute being in alignment.
Al?
Yes.
Christine has a question.
Okay.
She's referencing something that you said, that you wouldn't take another position because of the huge run after the first position taken.
Oh, on the Euro US or the US Swiss? Which pair was that?
I believe it was the Euro USD.
Euro USD.
Referencing, yeah.
Let's see here. Let me pull this off here. I believe what I was saying was that, well, so right now it's looking at breaking this Euro USD. This one, I'm not sure how to draw this one. It's kind of whipsawed us around a bit. A lot of times, if you get to your target, I guess what I'm saying is if you get to your target and it's a pretty strong target, especially on a higher time frame target, and it comes back into the wedge, sometimes they'll just pull back and make a strong run. A lot of times, what happens though, it gives you what I call a head fake. It takes you out, it gets you in. You can maybe get your 5 or 7 pip target. It comes back in and tests the wedge, but all that's doing is trying to get everybody sucked into. It's a trap, is what it is. It's almost like the area here is almost like a trap. You come in. This is really, if you can break this and get your 5 pips, great. But once you get into this area, you're almost better off trying to take it short. But you don't want to be taken short because because that's a risky move. But oftentimes, it'll come back into the wedge, retest the wedge, and then it breaks down to the bottom here, and then it just keeps on going. And that's almost what it looks like this thing's going to do right now. On this 1 minute, here was the original wedge. Here was the head fake. Came back up, head faked again. Now this thing breaks and everything is real strong to the downside. Let me see on my other chart here. If everything is real strong to the downside, this could be a nice little move to the downside. But you wouldn't have wanted to take this long, get out here with your profit, come back in, try and take another run. Thing is going to go up higher, only to get stopped out, giving up all your profit, and now it comes out. Checks out of the bottom of the wedge and then goes for the big run. And I see that happen, especially on the Euro US. I see that happen a lot where it gets you in, you get your 5 or 7 pips, or you try and go for the bigger run. You come back in, take your second position, thinking it's going to go up even higher, only for it to come back into the wedge, break out the bottom, and then take a nice run down. here was the original wedge right here, where I drew the original wedge on this. Tucked in my C here. It broke out. I think this did give us our 7 pips on this. I think it was a pretty, 60, 59 to, no, not quite. Didn't quite get the 7 pips on that. Does that answer your question? Hopefully.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now this thing looks like it's going to break to the downside. It's breaking this. So this was the, you could almost have taken after the wedge alert, and it had a little trend line, came up, and now it's looking to break this. You see how it came in at respect to this? It didn't close below. Now it looks like it may be coming up to retest the top of this wedge here, possibly. All of our moving averages are in the right direction. It head faked us off of this 30-minute 62. It came up, tested it, broke it, came back, head faked, came up, head faked again. And now it's looking like it's going to try to move to the downside here. See what it looks like on our 5-minute chart. Nice little wick up there. Let's see if it can break this. This is a significant trend line right here. If it breaks that, if it come all the way over here too, let's see if on a higher time frame. So if it can break the B, this is a point right here, it would be of interest. So I'm gonna mark that. And that's at 1831, and the price now is at 18, what is it? 43, so that's 12 pips to there. And if it breaks this, if you come all the way over, but if it breaks this and you come over here, you see here's a wick. Once it breaks, this is a wick here, you have a wick here, this is a strong line. It came up, tested it, and then it took off to way up there. It hasn't come back and retested this until right here. Once it breaks that, we're looking at this area down here because if you look over here, here's a wick, but once you come over, you hit the body of the candle, there aren't any wicks until there's a little wick over wick area right here, but here's where the main target would be. So if this thing does break to the short sell side, I would be looking at this as a target. That's the ultimate target once it breaks this one. Let's see if we can break that. You have a fib line. Here's a nice green fib line. Here's right where it broke there, the green fib line on the 15-minute. And this thing could be heading on down to this area. Once it breaks this area, it doesn't have a lot of wicks until this area right down here.
Christine, if you're asking if the 62 shows on all the different time frames, yes, it does. I'm hoping I understood your question. If not, then please clarify for me. Al, James is asking, is it possible to tap into your other evening sessions? Do we just have one a week in the evening?
Yeah, we just have the one at 9:30 East Coast time on Wednesday. We may have to look at some adjustment of that time. I don't know if that's the best time. We had about 8 people in last night, I guess, Christine. But right now we only have one session in the evening. We may look at changing that, maybe adding more or changing the time. We always have the recordings that we have during the daytime. All these are being recorded, so you can always look into the back office and find the recordings of the results for the day's trading session. Let's see how this thing looks. This thing's that's the Euro US. The US Swiss is re-challenged that upper part again. Went right up again and came back right back down again. I said that was a nice little trade. I think that one was basically that one's. I would be done with that one for the day. Now we're going to see if this thing's going to break out the bottom here or not. Let's take a look at this on a lower time frame. Got a little bit of a flag. There's a nice big drop, a little bit of a flag. And I could see this possibility on this one. Had a drop, retest it up here. I could be looking at this as a target area right in this area right in here. Right now, all the moving averages are good over here on the, we have the purple, yellow, green, white, yellow, green. And on our 15-minute, we have orange, yellow, green. So right now, everything's moving in the right direction. We broke through the bottom of the wedge. The dollar is strong by 3 on all, by 5 on the 5-minute, by 5 on the 1-minute. As long as it stays below the yellow moving average, we're in good shape. Our holes are red on all. We're still waiting for this one to turn red. This whole moving average, the 15, is red on the 5-minute chart and it's red on the 1-minute chart. It just hasn't closed yet to see if it's going to turn red or not. This one still has 6 minutes before that candle is going to close. It's coming up to retest the bottom of the wedge. Let's see what happens.
Al, I see a message from Rajiv. He's saying that, can you please check the US CAD? The wedge is broken to the upside.
Okay, let's see here. US CAD broken to the upside. Yeah, it has. We still have this little this area right here. Oh, let's see. What are we going to do? I don't like the idea this thing was so steep on that. I think originally we had it flattened like this with the target without, it had to break through this area. The CAD is still strong, so we're still looking at breaking to the downside. I wouldn't want to take it long with the CAD being stronger on the 15-minute. I'd be more apt to wait for it to, I said it wasn't able to break. If I get a close above this red line here, then we may have an option on that. And then we could possibly go from here to, well, let's see, out there. And the next target, if it breaks this target here and can get past the B, then we're looking at this area right here for the next target. If I can get this thing to draw. That'll be there. And if you look and see if there's a fib line on that at all. Let's check that out here. And that's right between the green and the red fib line. And I'll bet there's just a 2-minute line right there. Not quite. Yeah, I would still be waiting for it to break through the top of here before I take it long. Let's go back to our Euro US. Yes, back into the wedge. We do have a nice little sloping. Let's see what our 5 minutes. See if we have a trend on our 5 minute here. We did have the break up here, came back down. This is our significant trend line. We have one here, and we have another one up top here. Unless it breaks through the top of this upper trend, I would be a little concerned. I wouldn't bail on it yet. Let me take this off. This was where the alert was. This was the original wedge. And it's still respecting the bottom of this. That's one reason I don't like moving the wedges, even after the fact, because these are still significant areas, but the wedge alert, the alerts are looking at something that I don't know what it's looking at, but always seems to kind of know. And oftentimes you'll still see it respects, even though it breaks and goes back in, it's still respecting it right here. You see where it came right down to test this area that we had all the way that we drew over here for. So this is actually the other zone that it keeps on bouncing off of. And we'll just flatten this thing out. And we're 1 minute till the market opens, so we could have some interesting moves in another 30 seconds. In 15 more seconds, we'll get the US market will be opening. And we'll see what it does. This may have been the pre-open move. This strong move down could be the pre-open move. Usually sometimes you have to let it give a few minutes, 5-10 minutes before when the market opens to see how it's going to settle in. You see off these candles, there's wicks all the way up until you get to this area, top of the wedge. So if it does, it's got to get through all these sell orders. So far, that yellow 62.13 is still holding.
The US is still holding at just slightly above the euro.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's flipped 500 times by now.
Yeah. It's still showing some weakness on some of the other things I look at. And right now, all the RSIs are right in the middle, still trying to decide which way it wants to go. You see it's range bound between this blue candle. Let that red candle close. Another right there, it just closed. I should have a new candle, I think.
It's not even moving, is it?
It's just sitting there between those. Got that. Basically, that blue candle is engulfing where the red candle engulfed the blue one. So right now it hasn't broken out of this range here.
Trying to figure out what to do.
It's trying to figure out what to do. Oh, come on. I just see a blue candle and then close with a red candle and a break to the downside is what I'd like to see. It may come up and retest this 62. And that's about 5 pips up there. Check out our fib lines. This is a blue, it's right here at a blue fib line. It's trying to break through that. If it breaks through that, it could hit all the way up to this area. Right now, it's still kind of in no man's land. So right now, it's still inside the wedge, so there's really nothing to do. It says got to get through all these candles over here, all these wicks. Here's a wick, comes back, hits another wick, hits another wick. So right here is the top of the wick here, and then you've got another. Here's where the body ends. This is sort of like a level on a level, what they would call. See how it bounced right up to this 62. We'll see if it breaks through this. Now these come out of the 40-60 area. The blue one comes up, tags the 89 and hooks. That could be the end of this little push to the upside. Let's see, how's our US CAD doing? What did it do? It broke out. It's well still inside the wedge there as well. US Swiss, what's that doing? That came back, tested it. Now it's back inside the. Everything's inside the wedge right now. And as the world is playing around trying to figure out which way the dollar is going to go because of the U.S. economy, gold is still climbing, making new highs, which is the other flight to safety. We have about 10 more minutes before we have to get out of here. Any more questions? Let's take a look at this US CAD again here. Again, with the US CAD, I like having this flat top on the bottom, this BD flat top. The AC is the wedge. This is pretty much where I want to see this. I want to see a break to the, I like to, now I just want to see it break to the, if it, right now looking to see a break to the downside. It's approaching this AC area. But if it breaks the C, it's got to get past this A before it can come down, and then it's going to run right into this little area right in here. So I'm not a big fan of this trade on the US CAD. The Swiss, pretty much the same scenario. This was the alert at 8:45. It broke, came up into our zone, and then it came back down into the wedge. So this thing could break to the downside depending on what happens with the Euro US. And that one we're still trying to decide what that's going to do. Looks like it came up and testing the 62. See where it is on the 15-minute chart. Our 62 on the 15 is way up here in this area. Came up, tested the 30-minute 62. This is our first target area right here in this red zone. That was on the 5-minute. It's got the whole zone here for on the 15. And I could see a bounce off of the green fib line. See if it breaks through the top of the wedge. It is showing some strength, but it's right up into what I would call the trap area. This is a level on a level, so it could break through here, come up, hit this, and then come back down again. Lots of movement on that thing. A lot of buyers and sellers are fighting it out right at that level.
Al, I've got
Yes.
a question from Christine that I can't answer.
Okay.
He says, sorry, Christine. She says, you see how Al has the 30-minute 62 as well as his regular 62 on the 1 minute. Is there another 62 EMA on the 5 minute that has a 30-minute value?
Yeah, I can put the same one on the we have the ability to do that. I just have to turn it on, and there we go. So you'll see that's actually at the same spot. So basically, it's a 30-minute 62 that's just overlaid on a 5-minute chart. So it's really at the same point, whether it's from a 5-minute, 15, or it's the same value. It's still a 30-minute 62.
Does that answer?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Big wig right up into this area. Now the question is it going to close above the wedge? It is showing euro strength here on the 15. Let's see what it is on the euro is stronger on the 4, not quite on the 30. The dollar is still stronger on the 30-minute chart, on the 1-hour chart, excuse me. This is the 1-hour chart. Let's see what the 30-minute chart looks like. Stronger on the 15. And there it goes. Oh, okay. Now the question is it going to break through the top of this? Here's our target 1. Euro's definitely gotten stronger all of a sudden. Now, if we can get these coming up and give a hook, that might be the end of this run, or it could just be a continuation. One thing about with the RSIs is that when a lot of times with the bigger move, they'll keep going back and forth and back and forth. Basically, it's in an overbought position when it gets up to the top here. The problem you don't always know is if overbought just means it's just going to go more overbought as these things flatten out. If they flatten out to the top, that means that this thing could just keep on going up. And right now, it's pretty much at a consolidation zone right now on the lower time frame. It's coming right up to a fib line there. Let's see where the see how it respected that price range at 1866. And we'll see if it's going to break through it. Broke through all those. If it can break through this blue one, it could possibly be going all the way up to this 1887 area. Or at least the overshoot area of the green one. Right now it's still struggling to get past this. And on that note, I've got to be getting out of this room, so we're going to have to shut this thing down because someone else needs the room here another few minutes. Keep an eye on this. Take a note of 1873 for a price. take a note of 1866. If it breaks and closes above 1866, you're probably looking at 1873 for the next stop. But right now, it's struggling right into this area where we have our target set. And on that note, thanks everybody for coming in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Christine and Eva. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, Al.
And we're going to have to shut this thing down.